certain red flags when you're a property manager that you might not actually think are red flags. Some are obvious, but some are not so obvious. And these are the red flags that you need to screen out your tenant. An obvious one. They've been evicted in the past. If they've been evicted before, they're going to get evicted again. And also, when you take them to your eviction court, you're not dealing with a rookie who's never been there before, who's afraid of the system. At this point, they already know the system. They already know the process. You want to put yourself in position to win at all times. So you never want to go into a situation where the tenant has an advantage over you. So if you've ever find a tenant that's had an eviction, even if it's 10 years ago, deny it. Anybody who shows up to the showing drunk or high, not saying I don't like to have a good time, but you can't rent to people that show up for the showing drunk or high. But you'd be surprised how many people do that. Anybody with domestic violence or anything like that on their record. When the husband and the wife, boyfriend and the girlfriend, what have you, when they're fighting with each other, you know who's going to get the brunt of it? Your door. The landlord's door is who's going to take all those fists. Fist holes in your doors, in your walls. They're going to break up. They're going to both move out, one move out. Cops are going to get called. Neighbors are going to hate you. The city's going to hate you. Don't do it. Anybody with any type of domestic violence, cut them. Picky tenants. When you're a landlord, the most leverage and control you ever have is before you put them into the property. If you get to the point where they're already in the property, you lose a little bit of that leverage and control. Because if they're starting to do something that bothers you, you know, you have a contract you have to adhere to. If they start doing things against the contract, the process to get them out, you know, requires an eviction. You can't say, hey, you're not following the contract, you gotta get out. It doesn't work that way. So you got legal costs, time, then you gotta rehab the unit. You know, it's just money out of your pocket. So when you have them, you know, wanting to rent your property, that's all your leverage right there. If they're picky, they need to be on their best behavior because they should know that. And if they're being really picky, complaining about this, complaining about that, it's only going to multiply and get 10 times worse when they move into that property. So if they're too picky, cut them. Move on to somebody else. The tenant expresses interest in planting a garden or planting flowers. I don't even get this one. This is just from experience. Any tenant that's ever told me they want to plant a garden has been a problem. Just eliminate them. Any tenant that asks you for a rental discount in exchange for doing repair work at your house, renovating your house, or just making general improvements, what that tells me is, number one, they think your house is shitty, and number two, they're willing to live there anyway because they have nowhere else to go. Any tenant that ever says that, get rid of them. Any tenant with any felony. Doesn't even matter if you think the felony was that big of a deal. If a tenant has a felony, it's going to be that much harder to get a job. If it's that much harder to get a job, it's going to be that much harder to get your rent. As a landlord, you know, you can never guarantee that you're going to get rent. You always just want to put yourself in the best position to win. So make sure your tenant has a good chance at getting you your rent. Anybody with a teardrop or pretty much any face tattoo ever. Sorry if this offends any of you out there with tattoos on your face. I've rented to thousands of tenants and I've just never had good luck with anybody that had a tattoo on their face. So I don't like to rent to people with tattoos on their face. And you shouldn't either. People with an abundance of pets. I'm talking 4, 5, 6, 7 dogs. A property never looks good after a person with 6 dogs moves out of it. If you have a tenant that's got 6 dogs, move on. A tenant that's always trying to negotiate with you. If they want to negotiate this, they want to negotiate that. Again, this is before you put them in there. They need to be on their best behavior. And they think this is going to be a give-take relationship. When you're a landlord, it's really not a give-take relationship. It's you're the boss and you make the rules, they have to follow the rules. So if they're trying to negotiate everything with you and you slide on it, it's just going to be a slippery slope where they're going to just try to negotiate everything. What's next is rent's a little late, and they try to negotiate the late fee because you've already set the precedent that negotiations are acceptable. So if you have anybody that thinks they can constantly negotiate with you, cut them. Move on. Number 10. This one may seem obvious, but anybody who asks you to drive them to the showing, if they don't have a vehicle, that's a problem. Don't do it.